Good morning and welcome to the May business briefing. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule to stay connected and informed. Our agenda today will be local updates from the school district and the chamber, and then we will have our featured presentation from the Burnsville Fire Chief, BJ Jungmann. With that, we're going to start with our school district update with our school board member, Tyler Saxe. Tyler, you want to join us?
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite and good morning, everyone. I'll start, I guess, with probably the biggest topic district-wide at the moment, which is it's, of course, budget season for the next academic year. And that combined this year with Dr. Daniels wrapping up her first year in place as our new superintendent. And she has developed a vision along with the board for where we need to go. So the budget for next year also involves some reorganization at the district level. So that has been increasingly communicated about not only with staff, but with the community at large. And some opportunities have been given and will be continuing to be given for people to give feedback on that. But I think it's exciting for a district where that vision is and what Dr. Daniels has proposed. The reorganization is ultimately focused on what we hear the most about in the areas of need, which are the special education program and then general student support. As we've gone through students dealing with first the aftermath of COVID, now the aftermath of everything that was happening in our communities. Earlier this year, there are a lot of students who need that extra support and just kind of a general need overall. So the reorg is focused on that primarily. Along with also the goal of really reallocating resources more into the schools and into the classrooms and out of the central office. So I think everybody thinks that's a good thing as well that we're doing or proposing to do with this budget. Essentially, one of the biggest changes will be the hiring of 12 learning coaches that will be in each of the schools in the district. That's something, that's where some of the rebalancing will come from central office over there. But that is also very important, I think, for the district. We see a lot of the good things happening with pilot programs and other things we're doing with different curriculum, different methods of teaching in the classroom. We're seeing really good results from a lot of those programs. Having these learning coaches in place at the school level really allows us to speed up the implementation of those things. So we see they're working. Let's get them out everywhere and really get them going faster. So that's a big part of it. Also, the shifting of resources that way and also putting focus on special education and student support will come from currently there's 4 directors and then a series of coordinators underneath that. Dr. Daniels wants to shift to a model of just having 4 really dedicated directors in those areas and then have those learning coaches and other resources in the schools every day to help out with that. I would say the area we've heard the most concerns about in the whole plan has been there is a call to reduce the number of advanced learning specialists from 8 to 4. That definitely resonates. I understand the concerns. My own kids have benefited greatly from our advanced learning programs and opportunities. But I think trying to continue to convey, it doesn't mean these are the focus on advanced learning is going away. There are other programs, these other new roles that are being established. Advanced learning will be important under them as well. And so just really trying to convey patience with everyone to see how this kind of rolls out and that it's not just a straight cut to those things. We're really trying to improve those offerings as we go and continue to do so from an advanced learning perspective. That's the kind of the budget update, that big topic. Another topic at our most recent school board meeting, we did have a very positive report on graduation rates from last year. We saw increases across the board. District-wide was up 4% to 78%. Burnsville High School itself was up 4% to 84% for 4-year graduation. That gets us right to pretty much the state level. 84, 85 has been the state average for a few years running now. Some we were hoping for an increase naturally. We expected there would hopefully be some, as this was last year was the first year of four-year graduates who were able to go through high school without major COVID interruption. We kind of got the cohort that was after that. So we hope that would help a little bit, along with the other things we've been doing at a district level to try to increase graduation rates. So it was nice to see those pop up like they did. And especially seeing statewide was actually level. It was the same as the year before. And we were able to jump up 4% at the district level and at the high school itself. And then just really wanted to highlight from that, the Burnsville Alternative High School really stood out for their results there. If you're not familiar with that program, just kind of a quick overview. It's set up to support students who are struggling in the typical high school environment. They're often already behind from a four-year graduation standpoint early on in high school, or they have other mitigating circumstances in their lives that makes it difficult to really thrive in a traditional high school setting. So the alternative high school was set up several years ago to really address that, and kind of a unique program that offers really personalized support for these students to get what they need to get back on track, stay on track. And what we saw there was another increase of 6% in the four-year graduation rate, up to 64. So in 4 years, that's gone from 46 to 55 to 58 and now to 64% of those students who were, many of which were at one point behind on four-year graduation, graduating in 4 years, getting their degree. And equally impressive, I think we saw there, those that aren't getting it done in 4 years are really sticking with it. So last year's class had 64% graduate, like I said, in 4 years, but 24% are still in the program and trying to work towards their degree in the following summer or in the fifth year. So really impressive to see that. And it's really a program I think that the community should be really proud of, as that's really living up to what the vision was for it when it was created, of helping every student and giving them a chance to succeed. And the program is doing some really, really good things to see that graduation rate keep rising for those students that need that support. So that's sort of a shining star at the moment, among some other good news we got on the graduation front. And then speaking of graduation, that'll be kind of my final topic. We're into May now, kind of hard to believe, but that's the big month of celebrations for schools and district-wide. It already will start next week. So there's an Avid Senior Celebration on May 6th. That celebrates our program for college preparedness, for especially helping students through different topics and getting practice with writing, getting practice with other skills where maybe they didn't think they were going to be looking at a college, but as they go through high school, they get prepared and have that option if they like. So that's coming up. Foundation 191 Scholarship Program, May 13th. The alternative high school graduation is May 29th. Burnsville High School main graduation, May 31st. Of note, that one will be off-site for the first time. So it'll be at the Lee and Penny Anderson Arena, newly built on the St. Thomas campus. So there were a lot of reasons that we looked to go external after the last few years. We greatly appreciate the support of public safety in Burnsville and all of our educators who were pitching in to make the event go as smoothly as possible, but it's at a scale that's very difficult to do and pull off on site, like at the football stadium, like we've done in the past. So we're looking forward to allowing those teachers who would normally volunteer to be able to really enjoy the ceremony and not have some of the duties they've had to have in past years by having it off site. The best graduation, that's our Burnsville Egan Savage transition program. So that is tailored programming to students with IEPs and with disabilities. And it's a really great program. That graduation ceremony is a tremendous highlight of every year so far. I was able to attend last year. And those students get real work experience through different partnerships in the district. As they graduate, and they're allowed to, they set up tables and give presentations and kind of walk through what they did and what they learned after the ceremony. And the pride that they have in what they've accomplished is really awesome to see. So that's a great program if anybody can make that one as well. And then finally, after that, is Adults in Continuing Education Awards program. And then that wraps things up for this academic year. Any questions on anything or anything else I missed?
Excellent. Well, thank you for the updates. That's a lot of exciting things going on at the district. I know it's challenging, but we appreciate the hard work that your team does over there. And I know as a school board member, it's a lot of uh, tough decisions on your part. So thank you for stepping up and serving on the school board and being here to share with us this morning.
Thank you.
So just one second here. Gotta find my mouse on the screen to get to um, the right spot. And there we go. So I'll just give a few quick chamber updates. Um, we have some networking events coming up in May. Our AM coffee break is at Ebenezer Ridge's campus on Wednesday, May 13th. Our Out to Lunch program is at Chingu Korean Fried Chicken on Tuesday, May 19th. That's a new restaurant at Burnsville Center. I hope you'll check that out. In May, we also have our Small Business Week luncheon, and that is our annual award celebration. We recognize volunteers and businesses that have contributed to the chamber and the community. We have 5 awards being presented this year, and we'll also have a keynote speaker, Bruce Newstead, he is president of the Minnesota Retailers Association, and will share about the changing customer and what small businesses need to know, which is very appropriate during Small Business Week. Um, After the Small Business Week, we have our Golf Classic on June 1st. For those of you that know, we are, in addition to the Burnsville Chamber, we now manage the Savage Chamber as well. So that is a joint event, so some fun opportunity to connect with chamber members and local businesses. We have a few sponsorship opportunities left, and you can sign up to golf or sponsor or join us for dinner if you don't have time to golf. But hope you will put that on your calendar for Monday, June 1st. And then, oh darn, yes, we do have to talk about road construction. Um, so we have a big closure right now, starting tonight, probably our biggest one of the season, which means that 35W will be shut down from the 35E split to 494. It'll be closed in both directions for the entire weekend. So you are going to have to find ways around. The main detour is to take 35E up to Cedar to 494, but I'm sure you've got lots of back roads. We put a QR code here because obviously this construction project has a lot of ins and outs with different ramp closures and lane closures and changes throughout the summer. But at the end of it, we will end up with the completion of the Highway 13 bridges over 35W and the 35W bridges over Cliff Road. That should be completed by this fall. And then next summer, we will be looking at the Nicollet and 13 interchange, which will bring a whole new set of issues, but at least we'll be done with the 35W part of it. So you can use this QR code to stay up to date on the project. Those are my updates from the chamber. So with that, I'm going to introduce our fire chief, BJ Jungmann. He is going to take over the slideshow here and share Beyond the Call, Fire and Emergency Medical Services. BJ?
Hey, welcome everybody this morning. Thanks for joining. Just giving a few updates on a little bit beyond just responding to emergencies in the fire department and things we have going on. So a little bit about who we are. We're an all-career, all-hazards department. What does that mean? That means we respond to any type of emergency, whether that's fires or hazmats or emergency medicals or rescues, anything like that, we handle. and partner with people when it gets into things like technical rescues, such as a trench rescue or a confined space, or if someone's hanging off a water tower, which we call high angle rescue, things like that. We can do some of that, but we have great partners that we also use for those kinds of services. The department was established in 1981 when we split from public safety, and it started with 23 personnel, and we responded to 600 calls for service in 1981. You go fast forward to the present day, we're at 66 personnel, and we responded to just over 10,300 calls for service in 2025. So, quite the growth and demand for service in the community. And when you think of it, many fire departments are over 100 years old. Although 1981 was a while ago, it's not that long ago. So the department is still relatively young compared to many in the fire service. When you look at our mission, we're dedicated to provide efficient and effective fire, medical, rescue, and prevention services of the highest quality. I use this also as our vision statement. We're always pursuing that highest quality. And really, we have four buckets of service: that fire response, which you're probably most familiar with, the medical response, which is a bit unique in Minnesota, that we have a fire-based ambulance service. There's a handful of us that do that across the state, but in the South Metro, we're one of few fire departments that also own the ambulance service. That allows us to have all of our folks be paramedics or going to paramedic school to be a paramedic, which provides a high level of service to the community. I touched a little bit on the rescue services and then the prevention service. Lots of times we think about fire prevention, whether those are the school visits, our open house, fire prevention messages, but prevention is wider than just fire prevention. It's things like fall prevention. And I'll talk at the end a little bit about where we're going with community risk reduction and the opioid funding. When we talk about our values, we operate with a commitment to personal and organizational character, communication, collaboration, and competent excellence. And this is really what we hire for, particularly the character piece. To me, it's really important that we hire the highest level of character. The community entrusts us to help them on their worst day. And it's important that we have professionals that show up, that are compassionate, that are caring, but can also communicate and are great at their job. But it starts with a good character trait. So we put a lot of focus in our hiring process and our promotional processes on the character of who people are, because that generally doesn't change in people. We can train them to do the technical skills, but really we want to focus on hiring the best people from a character perspective. This is just kind of an organizational chart. Fortunate to lead the organization for over the past 15 years. We have three assistant chiefs. The one on the left is the assistant chief of operations, Chris Walker, who was newly promoted after our longtime assistant chief of operations, Terry Ritchie, retired less than 2 weeks ago. And then under Chris is three battalion chiefs. So we run three shifts, three 24-hour shifts. The firefighters spend a third of their life in the fire station. So we have an A and B and a C shift. So they work an average of 56 hours a week every third day on a 3-week rotation. So that averages out to about 2,920 hours of scheduled hours per year compared to your average employee that's scheduled for 2,080. Under each battalion chief, the battalion chief's responsible for each shift. And then under there's a captain at each station, then a handful of firefighters. You see the firefighters with the white background at the bottom. We do run 4 firefighters on a 12-hour shift, and I'll show you why here shortly. But they work 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a 2-week rotation, which is different than our firefighters that are working 24-hour shifts. This middle column, Assistant Chief of Professional Standards, Neil Dwyer, basically oversees our administration, our training, and our emergency medical services. When you look at EMS and running an ambulance service, it's kind of like running a clinic. We have to have a national provider ID. We have to have a medical director. We have to have many of the things that a clinic would have to have for billing and HIPAA compliance and all those medically necessary components. We have an administrative captain that oversees a lot of our training and compliance. We have a newly created firefighter paramedic of community risk reduction, Mike Andrews, and Mike is embedded with our police department's behavioral health unit, and we're funding that through the opioid settlement money to focus on behavioral health and opioid overdoses in the community, and that's been a great asset. So he's been able to proactively go meet with many of our high utilizers in the community, meet with many of the group homes, the different professionals in the community that touch behavioral health and overdoses or chemical dependency. We have a contract medical director, Dr. Andrew Stevens, who's actually a Burnsville High School graduate. He oversees our clinical practice as paramedics and EMTs. We have a mental health professional, which is unique in the fire service. We're working on changing that culture. Jonathan Bunt is unique to us, comes from an interesting background, but he's embedded 3 days a week. So each shift has an opportunity to meet with him each year, and each firefighter, each of us get an opportunity once a year to do a check-in with him. He doesn't do any long-term therapy or counseling, but more of a navigator and really about building resiliency. So his focus is how do we train people how to deal with things that they're going to see that really no human should have to see that they're not going to forget? So how do they digest that? Also unique to us is we have a physical therapist, Dr. Jared Schroeder, who comes in every other week for 2 hours, and our folks have an opportunity again to work with him to address issues or get ahead of issues. If they have a tight back or a joint that's hurting or decreased mobility in an area, they can work ahead of that so that hopefully we prevent injuries, and we've seen good success with that. Deb Oxborough is our data analyst. We run 11 different record systems. Her goal is to keep those up and running and allow us to use data to make informed decisions with the resources we have. And then Tracy Simpson's our senior admin assistant. Sits up front if you come visit Fire Station 1. But really, Tracy makes the day-to-day of the fire department go round and round. She handles all kinds of things from accounts payable to answering the phones to scheduling visits to a lot of the administrative work that happens in the fire department. We also have our fire marshal and 2 fire inspectors. Most commonly, you probably see them either on fire inspections or they're responsible for all the fire investigations because we're required to investigate any fire with over $100 loss. They also do our background checks on any of our new candidates that are coming in. And they also do plan reviews for any type of buildings going into town. So it's a little bit about us. When you look at this, you look back to 1985, and why we use 1985 as a starting point. 1984 in September is when we took over the ambulance service for the community. So 1985 was our first year having the ambulance service. We were just under 2,000 calls. And as I said, we're up to over 10,000 calls in 2025. The green line is the number of FTEs in the department. And you can see that we continue to increase to start to meet that increasing demand within the community. Our minimum staffing, this kind of just gives you another visual of how many people are staffed. So at Station 1, we staffed 2 ambulances of 2 and an engine of 3, as well as Station 2 has an engine and a medic rig, both with 2 at our minimums during the day, and a battalion chief on. When you look at nighttime, that medic 3 goes home at 8 p.m. at our minimums, and the rest of our staff stays. And why we do that is our peak incident demand really is from about 8 a.m. until about 8 or 9 p.m. This is a universal curve that you see in the majority of the United States. There's a couple exceptions, but the waking hours are when the majority of incidents happen. Therefore, it makes sense to have that third ambulance on, not necessarily 24 hours a day at minimums, but at least 12 hours a day. When we're hiring people, I just wanted to kind of give you some background. When we hire people and I talk about character, it takes us about 31 to 37 weeks from the time we say we need to hire somebody until they've been through field training and they're on shift, counting towards what we call our minimums. So it's everything from preparing a posting and putting it out, an application period. Then we review and score applications, and then we do interviews. And we do a physical fitness assessment, and then we go into pre-employment where we do significant background investigations, everything from social media, finances, education. We'll talk to their school teachers, their neighbors, references. We want to know who these people are. Then we do psychological, medical, and drug screens, and then we give them 2 weeks to notify their employer. And then they go into field training, which is an 18-week process of learning about the organization and working on shift side by side with a field trainer. So that gives you an idea. I thought it would be interesting for you to see on this next slide here the number of applicants. You can see in 2014 we are getting 63 applicants. That's at the very bottom. 43 of those were qualified. And as you see, the farther we move up here, we saw a stagnation or a decrease in the number of qualified applicants. Particularly when we get into like 2023, we're getting down to 15 qualified and 16 qualified applicants. And these are for firefighter paramedics. So we used to get them with them having all the training coming in the door, and we used to have great success with that. But we saw those dwindling numbers, and you saw we've been adding staff to meet the community demand. So we added what we call the fire trainee program. And what you see here is this gray line is the number of fire trainee applicants, and then the gold line is the number that we moved on to through the process. And the fire trainee applicants are firefighters that have their EMT. So it's a lower level of training. It's a couple of hundred hours of training instead of about 1,800 hours of training that a paramedic goes through. And then we hire them and send them through paramedic school. So it's a way of starting to kind of build our own. And so when you look at a hiring timeline of the firefighter paramedic, you see that on the left is really that 7 to 9 months. The right is the fire trainee program for our firefighter EMTs, and that's about 24 months. So they go through the same kind of 7 to 9 month process, and then they go to about 11 months of paramedic school. So they'll work on shift beside a firefighter paramedic, and then they will go to school at the same time, and we'll pay for their schooling. We pay them a lesser rate than the firefighter paramedic with the goal of getting them to be a firefighter paramedic. And as soon as they pass their paramedic test at the end, they're considered a firefighter paramedic for us. And we've had 3 classes of fire trainees. We've graduated our first 3 from paramedic school, and it's been a great success. And again, we focused on hiring the right character and worked to build that technical competence through paramedic school. So we've seen great success and anticipate that this program will continue to grow as we see the firefighter paramedic pool dwindle. I talked a little bit about it, but we are fortunate to own our ambulance license. The communities around us do not, and they're provided by a private ambulance service, and those folks do a great job as well. We just approach it differently. So you have dedicated ambulances in the community 24/7. You saw it with staff. There's 3 ambulances during the day, 2 ambulances at night. All of our surrounding communities are provided by these private ambulance services that don't necessarily dedicate ambulances to a single community because they aggregate their service area over multiple communities, and they might only have 5 ambulances to cover from the airport down through Shakopee, Savage, Prior Lake. So as they go on calls, there's less and less ambulances available. We're also fortunate that paramedic level is our standard. And so regardless of whether an ambulance or a fire engine shows up first to your emergency, if it's a life-threatening emergency, our ambulances and our engines carry life-saving equipment. Both of them carry heart monitors, and you see the automatic CPR device called the Lucas device there in the bottom right. And there's paramedics on all of our ambulances and engines. So they're able to provide life-saving treatment regardless of what truck shows up first. We're fortunate to have the support to have kind of that latest and greatest technology and equipment. We replace equipment on the manufacturer suggested guidelines, so we're not holding on to equipment that's not reliable and out of date. We do a lot of training to maintain their license and skill proficiency, and we believe that the response time is crucial to survive in both trauma, stroke, and cardiac arrest, and those, again, those life-threatening emergencies. So we've set up both our ambulances and our engines for those things. And then vice versa, our firefighter paramedics on the ambulance also carry their fire gear and their air packs and some other small tools, so that if they show up first to a fire scene and we have a victim trapped, they have the ability to go in and rescue somebody if they show up before the fire engine, which is likely to happen if they're leaving, let's say, Fairview Ridges Hospital, and we get a fire somewhere in the center of town. They're going to beat the fire engine there, and they can do something about it. The other thing, speaking of the ridges, we're fortunate to have a hospital in our community. About 80% of our patients are transported locally. Without that hospital being in our town, it'd be difficult to do those 10,000 calls and have the reliability that we do for the community because the ambulances would be out of town more often. That the other 20% of those patients, go to a variety of hospitals, whether that's downtown for traumas, regions, or Hennepin. Um, we go to Abbott, Methodist, Southdale, United. Again, a plethora of hospitals throughout the metro that the other 20% are scattered amongst. You may have seen something over the past year about our whole blood program. We are the first ground ambulance in the state to carry whole blood. Some of the helicopter services have been carrying it for a few years. But we had a firefighter paramedic who was passionate about it, did a ton of research, and really set us up for success on this and partnered with Memorial Blood Centers, who's been a great partner. And so we carry a unit of O positive, low titer whole blood, and we've given it 14 times so far. So 9 times last year and 5 times so far this year. And it's been a great success. Our transfusion time is 45 minutes, which is generally an hour or two faster than what you're going to see in the hospital. We have a lower rate of hospital transfusions in the first 24 hours, and a decrease in 30-day mortality rates with that. So again, it also helps decrease the hospital stays and the high financial burden on the patient. Right now, there's about 150 plus agencies across the nation doing this since 2019. And again, we're very fortunate to have this system. I've personally seen it work on a patient, and this only goes to the sickest of the sick patients when their blood pressure is low and they have an altered mental status. So again, just because somebody gets cut doesn't mean they're getting a transfusion, and it's not just trauma. About half of our patients were medically related, whether that's like a gastrointestinal bleed or some other type of medically induced bleeding disorder. And so it's been a great asset to have for the community. Spoke to this a little bit, but on the fire suppression side, again, we respond with an engine or a ladder truck. We have the dual role medic units where they're firefighters and paramedics, and they carry all of their fire gear. We take an all hands approach. So when a structure fire comes in, everybody working that shift during the day that's not on a call will get there. And really, we want to put the fastest water on the fire. That's our goal. If we put the fire out, it makes it better for everything else. And really, we work to create thinking firefighters. We do a lot of training to get our firefighters prepared to make decisions on the scene. There's still a hierarchical command structure in there, but those two firefighter paramedics that show up don't necessarily have a supervisor with them. So we need them to make good task level decisions on if they're going to go in to search a house, are they going to go in and go upstairs or downstairs? Are they going to go left or are they going to go right? They have to know when they're sizing up that house when they pull up to look where the residents might most likely be and make decisions like that. We also focus on decontamination. I'm going to talk here in a minute about the risk to firefighters, but we are definitely seeing an increased cancer prevalence in firefighters. And one thing we're doing to decrease that is after firefighters are exposed to toxins in the fires, we're decontaminating them both on the scene and then back at the fire station. When we look at today's fire environment, it's very different than it was when I started in the fire service. We see people building larger homes now. Granted, Burnsville was built out years ago, but people really focus on open spaces versus the compartmentalized spaces we saw in more legacy homes. Really, one thing that's changing for us is evolving fuel load. If you think of what's in your house or in your office, most things now are made out of petroleum products. They're synthetics. We don't have a lot of natural fibers like we did years ago. Our grandparents' couches that had the floral pattern that were made out of wool burned much slower because they were natural fibers. Today, everything has synthetics, which means it's got petroleum, so it's burning some gasoline in there. We have more void spaces. We have more and more places that are built with engineered lumber. We see a lot of these apartment buildings going up are built out of wood and not out of non-combustible materials. And that wood is engineered. It's not full thickness wood. We have the changing in building materials using laminated beams and gusset plates and glue and things like that that do not hold up well when there is a fire. When there is a development, we see smaller lots, so it's easier for the fire to travel from one house to the next. We also have new technologies and things like solar panels on residential roofs, which decreases our ability to do things like ventilate the roof, cut a hole in the roof, and adds additional weight to the roof. that we have to account for. So this means fire is propagating faster or moving faster. We have shorter time to flash over. That means the amount of time until the room that the fire started in is completely involved in fire. The dynamics change. We have shorter escape times for occupants, shorter time to collapse. We have increased exposure to other structures and new and unknown hazards. And really what that means is that we have less of a margin for error. That means that our firefighters need to be on top of their game when these fires do happen and make good decisions based on what they're seeing to keep themselves and the community safe. When you look at fires, we have about 48% of our fires over the past 11 years happen in single family, 32% in multifamily, and 20% in other building types. When you look about that for a suburban community, we really see fires that are more in an urban mix. This is what you would generally see more in an urban area with more dense population. But because of the amount of multifamily dwellings we have, we really need to focus our tactics not just on single family dwellings, but also our multifamily dwellings. On the prevention side, we try to do things to use that data and get ahead of fires. Some of the things we're doing is pre-planning buildings. As business owners, you might see us come through and do an inspection and or want to pre-plan your building. Pre-plans are what you see in the upper right corner here. We have a system where we capture data, who's the correct contact, and then we label the sides of the building, where the gas meter is, the electric, water shut off, all those kinds of things, anything specific from a hazard standpoint. So if we do get a fire there, we are in a better position to be informed as we respond. We provide a fair amount of public education, both in the schools you see in the bottom left, as well as to other community groups throughout the year. As I talked about, we do inspections, we do fire investigations, we do permitting for fire work, whether that's, right now we have a contractor in town doing some of the burns in some of the open grass areas, but it's also permits for fire alarm systems and fire suppression systems and things like that. And then again, fire prevention initiatives you see in the upper left as the fire stops. We've really put a lot of focus in trying to reduce risk in our multifamily dwellings because that is generally where we've seen the greatest risk, both from property loss as well as injuries. So we've tried to do things to both educate and engineer things that will prevent fires, or if they do have fires, they reduce the impact. So these fire stops stick up underneath magnetically the range hood in an apartment building, or you can use them in your house too, but we've really focused on multifamily. And if you have a grease fire, there's a little wick underneath there, and it drops basically dry chemical like you'd have in a fire extinguisher to extinguish any type of grease fire, so it doesn't extend. So we've had a number of great success stories of having those fire stops installed, where they've worked when we do have a grease fire, where we would have displaced, a dozen units in an apartment building because that fire would have gone beyond the pan. Instead, they're replacing the range and the range top and maybe one cabinet above it. And you might displace one unit at the most. And like I said, we've had a number of saves because of these. We do live fire training, so many of you are familiar with our ABLE, Apple Valley, Burnsville, Lakeville, and Eagan. We share a training site right across from Walmart on River Ridge. That gets used about 100 days a year, not just by us, but other agencies. Although we do spend a fair amount of time down there, but we make sure that our firefighters are trained and get into live fire training every year. Fitness and wellness, we really emphasize wellness and are on the cutting edge of that. You can see these pictures from Station 1. This station was really designed around wellness, and that's physical wellness, mental fitness, and incentivizing wellness. So we're trying to take care of kind of all aspects of wellness for them and encourage it. You can see the physical fitness piece. We have a great fitness facility, both indoor and outdoor. We have our physical therapist. We do annual physicals, which are required by OSHA. And then we do fitness assessments. And as you can see in the bottom bullet, we can incentivize that so they can earn additional vacation time if they score well enough on their fitness assessment. We also have the mental health professional, which we talked about. He comes in 3 days a week. He has a therapy dog, Sully, that comes with him, which is great. And then our health and wellness committee with our firefighters is very active, and they do monthly health and wellness challenges. So it's May already, but last month they did the challenge to find out which shift could do the most miles, either running or biking. So I haven't seen the results yet, but they do these friendly competitions to try to help push each other to be better. I talked about cancer here. Firefighters are at a higher risk of uh, a number of cancers, and you can see them listed down here. And we don't necessarily know why for all of these. There's plenty of ideas on this, but we're still learning a lot. And what you see is, again, kind of how we approach things are trying to get ahead of this and reduce it with decontaminating the firefighters on scene. And then when they get back, again, if you've been through station one, you've seen between the two apparatus bays, we have this decontamination area where they go in and take showers, and their fire gear and their uniforms get put in gear in these commercial extractors to get cleaned. But again, really our goal is to reduce this over 10 different cancers that we have a greater risk to. So it's a huge piece of health and wellness that we're trying to understand more and do better at. Cardiac is another thing. It's the number one cause outside of motor vehicle accidents for firefighters to die of. And really, our fire gear is great at keeping heat out. It's also great at keeping heat in, which means that we get dehydrated and our blood plasma gets thicker. So we need to be in great cardiovascular shape. So again, having them work out every day when they're on shift and work to better themselves, to be prepared when we do have these fire incidents and they are working hard and dehydrating themselves, that their heart is ready for that stress. And then the third piece of this is the emotional trauma. So again, the amount of suicide and suicide attempts and mental health diagnoses in the fire service continues to go up. And it's something that, as firefighters, we are here to help others, and it's hard culturally for us to ask for help. So part of embedding that mental health provider and doing annual check-ins with him and having him available and checking in with people has been great. And I would tell you that the new folks we're hiring actually expect that. That's one of the questions they ask us frequently. And so having that resource has helped us be the employer of choice on the fire side. But I would tell you, you're all aware of the tragedy we experienced on February 18, 2024. I attribute a lot of our success of getting all of our folks back after that to work to both the police department and fire department having embedded mental health professionals, where everybody had a relationship with our embedded mental health professional ahead of time, and those mental health professionals knew what our baselines were, and they could pick out when we're off, and they could talk to us and help guide us, and that has been a great resource for us. From a strategic priority perspective, we're focusing on mental health care innovation. That's one of our biggest drivers of call volume. Enhanced on shift staffing. You saw how we're trying to meet the community demand with resources. The community risk reduction we talked about a little bit. Continually improve our operations. Whole blood's a good example of that. And then we talked a lot about the health and wellness practices we have. So looking forward, we look to continue to learn as we have Mike Andrews in that community risk reduction position, embedded with the PD's behavioral health unit. We look forward to Dr. Stevens doing great things with that CRR position and working with our new fire trainees as we're new to training paramedics and getting them up and running. We're planning on replacing Station 2 here in the next couple of years. We really need that operational in 2029 to meet the community demand. We've put on the radar to start planning for a third fire station in the next 10 years or less. And then we work to continue to invest in our health and wellness of our staff. And then lastly, we're working to really real-time data visualization. This helps us make more informed decisions and allows us to be more transparent on things. So as technology has evolved, it's allowed us to visualize our data. You see down the bottom right here, just one example of that is a pin map of all of our call volume and, what type of calls we have going on, but it can also be super helpful in things like during flu season. Should we be using additional protective equipment when we go on, let's say, respiratory type calls, if we start to see a spike in those types of incidents, or at a specific location, particularly in like our assisted livings or nursing homes or group homes. So it can help us make more informed decisions that way. So that's kind of where we're headed and some of our big milestones in the future here. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to present this morning.
Your leadership. Um, as you know, if you're here in person or watching this, we record these programs and post them on the Chamber YouTube page. You can go back and watch some of our previous programs. I think one of the hottest ones is our special report on Burnsville road construction. So if you want to see the presentation from MnDOT, not just the one pager, but see the whole walkthrough of the project this summer and beyond, that recording is up there. And of course, this recording from BJ for anything you missed will be up there, and the local updates that we provide as well. We have this program is held the first Friday of every month with local updates from the city, school, and chamber, as well as a featured topic. On Friday, June 5th, our topic will be wrapping up the legislative session. So hope you can join us for that, and we'll have great topics throughout the year. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us today and hope that we see you on a future program.